Okay, time to do an update for the alerts because there's a lot of updates. So, first of all, um, this is exactly what it says it is. It's going to show it up in this table here. Manual means data for manual trading. And currently the output by default is on manual. So you can see that it's very small. By default, we can make it a little bit bigger, especially for a demo, so it's easier to see. Just give it a minute. Okay, so here is your trading information. Uses relative prices and a negative number to go down instead of up. That's only for manual trading. For automation, I've found that basically all the third-party systems want positive numbers, so it can be changed to positive. That's what this make absolute down here is checked by default, but that's only auto trading. So how do we trade this? I think it's pretty easy. Reference bar back will always be 0, which just means the current bar. So if we go to, it used to be variable, but now it's always current bar on entry. So here's our entry bar. And it's simply saying the relative price is -2. And so we would just put in a -2. So let me go and do that. I might pause this and set it up to save time. So this only shows the latest trade. So the one I was on wasn't the latest trade. It's actually a trade still in progress. So this is the latest trade. And here you can see the -2. So basically you just follow the bouncing ball. You set up your take profit point, stop loss point, and so on, just according to these numbers. It's really simple. There's your stop loss, be 46. So we'd go up here. That would be 46 away. And when you say 46 away from what, you just look at it and it says from the high of the bar. So, okay, wrong one. That's the entry. So this is the high of the bar. That's a stop. So in theory, if it's not lying to us, we should be able to go from about the high of this to about here. And it should say about, well, it should say actually exactly 46, which it does. So there's your basically how you manually set up your thing. So if I was doing this, I would just enter straight away. I would just, to get as little slippage as possible, I just do a market and trade and just enter. And then I just put the stop and the take profit in later. Now this one's a little more complicated because this is actually using a trailing stop. So the take profit's very close with the expectation that sometimes the trailing stop is going to kick in and give you a nice trade. And in this latest one, we just happen to be really lucky. I mean, that's got to be one of the most beautiful trailing stops, probably the most beautiful trailing stop in all the trades in this thing just by chance. But I mean, that's going to be a lot of money. Look at that. Certainly, so the current trade is like ridiculously high. So anyway, that's just a luck thing. Now, that's see, what was I doing? Oh, that's right. I was showing the options at the beginning of the alert. So let me get back there. I'm going to pause again and throw it up so you don't have to wait. Okay, so that was this here. And we now, I mean, sorry, that was this option here. Now we can also show the automation in the table. The automation isn't going to come up by checking that only. You've also got to say, we're using templates because the templates is the automation. So now we're going to get both, which probably isn't going to fit on the screen. So we probably want to take one of these away. Maybe I'll turn off the manual table. So we'll just give that a chance to catch up. But the thing is, you might want to be able to look back and see things trade by trade. That's going to be more important, especially when you're setting up templates. So, and by the way, I'm moving over to automation now. That's about all you need to know about manual trading is, there's your thing. I mean, there's your information and away you go. So ignore these dashes. I think that's just the line between the auto trading and the manual trading, because manual trading is not there. You just got a weird line with a comma on the end. So this is your auto trading information. This is by default set up for Pine Connector, but of course there's pick my trade, trade post or something like that, traders post or something. There's lots of them out there. And that's why this whole system is set up with templates. But I'm just going to go through first with things to know with Pine Connector, and then I'll show you how to set things up with for different ones. So showing labels is important because now you can see it as it happens. So you're going to get a whole bunch of stuff in here in a second. Because there's trailing stop, that's going to show you each time this moves, you're going to get another label saying, hey, here's the new command to send out for auto trading. And as you can see, here's your, let's ignore this one. Let's use this current trade here. So this is showing you the actual thing that would be sent. Anything inside these square brackets is actually what would be sent. And that's coming from, we're on a market thing where I'm not using limit or stop orders in this case. So I can just go down here and look at the template. So there you go. Market order. This is a short. So L is for long. So we go past all the L's to the shorts. There's a short market order. So that should be exactly what we're seeing here. And it is. So then when the trailing stop starts coming in, you see the commands for the trailing stop. In manual trading, you would see that in here and you just manually adjust where the stop goes. I'm not sure what else to tell you. Yeah, okay, I got a couple of things on how the templates work. There's a couple of things important to know. So let's go through it. The first one is this scale factor. This is in case there's some sort of gross mismatch between, or even a slight mismatch that you're trying to correct between TradingView and your broker, and you think just a slight scaling, stops a little bit wide, a little bit narrow would help. This will help. So 1 just means there's no scaling, right? Scale of 1 is no change. So you can play with that. Make absolute. Definitely always read these things to know about what's what. But make absolute just means that all these numbers will be positive, not negative like they are when you're doing the manual trading. It's on by default because I actually don't know of any third party that I've looked at that actually uses negative numbers. They all assume that you know the direction, therefore the number is positive. I actually don't agree with that methodology, but it is what it is. You can leave this alert frequency as is by default. And if somehow you think it needs to be changed, you can adjust these, of course. All right, so you can say instead of, well, it's not going to really affect open. It might affect move stop if you've got like a very long time frame, like suppose this is an hour and this is actually moving, you might actually get updates in the middle of that. Not exactly sure. Well, you have to experiment with that. It kind of depends on how you've set up your whole strategy and so on. Move, take profit. This is actually an interesting one. This is a very new feature, but you can actually move the take profit now. There's a special feature for that, and you can see that in other things. I can't show it in here, but just believe me, the take profit can actually shrink in. If I go back far enough, there you go. Now, if I go back far enough, you can see. So you can see take profit is actually coming in. So basically, you can set up rules saying that if my trade hasn't proved, my thesis hasn't proved correct by a certain number of bars or a certain amount of time, start reducing my take profit and try and at least get some sort of money out of it. That's basically what's going on there. It's something you can turn on. It's a new feature. It's kind of cool, I think. I'm not sure how useful it'll be over time. Different people have to try it and see what the consensus is. Okay, going back to the latest trade here. So you've got these move stops. Every time this moves, you're going to get another thing. So these are this without the brackets around it, of course, is what's going to be sent to your third-party tool. Here you're seeing it not as one line just because we don't want to make this thing really wide. If you want to see it, I think that does it. Spaces to new lines. I think that will actually let it be one line. But just for visual convenience, there's this option here. Yep, there you go. So now you're seeing everything as one line, but for visual convenience, that's probably the better way for the table itself. It doesn't affect obviously labels or you would have seen something change. This tells you basically all the things you have as substitutes and so forth. So now let's get into the substitutions. You can just play with these. These are just visual things. This is says when the trade is over, just remove everything in here so this table isn't so tall. It's not going to remove anything from there at the moment because you're actually in the middle of a trade. Let's see. These are just things you can add in. I'm not even sure how much they're used anymore. So I'd probably ignore those for a little while. They're left over from the past. And I don't think they're actually going to be in anything. They might show up in the manual trade. They won't show up in the auto trading because you don't want to put things in there that are not in the template. Okay, now down to more important things. First of all, what this custom substitution is about. You can put a name here, any name you want. Then this pipe character, which is usually above the enter key or something on the right of your keyboard, somewhere around there. And then a number. And what this does is it allows you to put that word, as you can see, license, in your templates with double curly brackets around it. And it will replace whatever you put there as a number in your template. So it's just doing a custom substitution. You can set up as many as you like. Why would you have these separate instead of just hard coding in the template? The main reason being is, one, it's quick to change, but that's not the main reason. The main reason being, if you want to show it on your chart, anything here in the custom substitutions, because they might be some sort of security thing, this is unchecked by default. They won't show up here. So that's the main thing. Although this is not saying show on chart, it is showing up here. So maybe I'm lying. Let me see what that says. Does not affect showing labels. Okay, only affects the table. So it won't show up in the table. The reason it doesn't affect the labels, I remember thinking this through, because you need to see it in the labels exactly how it's going to be sent for debugging purposes. So it does not affect the labels, but normally you wouldn't have the labels turned on by default. When you turn the table on, it will remove it from the table because you may just want the latest trade information shown in the table all the time. And so for security reasons, you can block out any substitutions from this you create from the table. Let's see, what's next? What each of these templates do, I think, is pretty obvious. I mean, if it says order market, that's obviously order market order template for L for long. And, you know, this kind of tells you it's all longs under here. And I think this is all pretty obvious. Cancel is obviously goes against limit or stop orders, not market orders. Close goes against stop orders. Move stop, I think it's pretty obvious. Like if you have a trailing stop, it's just whatever pattern you want to put in or template you want to put in for move stop. Again, for moving the take profit point. And then same thing for shorts. So I think it's pretty obvious what each one of those does. But probably what's not obvious is what this does. Right now, down here, you see it's got a type of distance for the number called distance from previous bars high low. Probably almost no one's going to use that because that's just something I was using internally. Normally what you might use is something like a percentage or something. So you can go down here and you can look for the various different price moves. Like this might be a move. So it's just the exact price difference between your entry and your stop or take profit. This is for limits. So if we go down a little bit further, this is for your stops. But there's this one called meta, which works by asset type. So if we fill this in, where let's say this was, what this is going to do is instead of actually being specific, like for example, just a price difference only or percentage only or what have you, it's going to be whatever you set up here in types. So the type is the 4x. Well, we've said all of these are relative price from entry types, but you might 4x, you might want to use pips. So what you do down here is under stop, you go, okay, stop pips from entry. So I'm just going to go stop pips from entry. Or actually, no, it's just pips from entry, not stop because it'll work for anything. So I'm just going to go pips from entry. I'm going to go next to 4x. I'm going to put that in there. And now instead of using relative price, whenever you get an asset type of 4x, which this is not, then it's going to use pips from entry as a number here instead of relative price from entry. So this just allows you to have kind of a chameleon substitution based on asset type. That's basically what this, and then this here tells you a little more about it, explains it to you a little bit. So that's basically what that's for. That's only useful if, in your substitutions here, you're using meta. That's what meta is. It's substituting whatever you have here based on asset type. Otherwise, it just uses whatever you put in there directly. If you put in relative price, use relative price. You put in points, it'll use points. Notice it says Forex only. So if you put in points and then you're trading Bitcoin, you're just going to get nothing. Keep that in mind. But that's basically how the asset types, the templates work. And you just figure out from whatever third party you're using, whether it's Pine Connector or Pick My Trade or Trade Post, or was it Trader Posts? I think something like that. Can't remember the exact name. You just put in the template to create it, and then you look here on the screen to see if it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Now, let's the question is, how do you figure out what to put in the templates? Well, one way is to take all of these templates, throw it into ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever your AI is, and say, produce a bunch of templates for such and such for me, knowing these things, right? And that'll give you a really good starting point. And I'm just going to pause for a second and pull up where I did that for an example. Just one moment. So here's an example where I took all those templates, put it in ChatGPT, slightly different way to where I mentioned it, but you can do it the way I said, just cut paste it, you'll get the same result. Then it came back and tried to give it to me in code form, and I said, no, I don't want code form. I want something I can drop into the templates areas. And so then after it kind of did it the second way around, here you can see it's given me what it believes is the correct way of doing it. So this is your starting point, right? Now, not everything's going to be right, because here, entry price is not exactly how my things work. So you're going to have to make some changes and substitute that for what is from my template, which means you go over to here and you look at what the right actual thing is. So you look up in here. You can just use meta, which is probably the smartest way. That's the way I would do it. Or if you want something very specific that's not meta, you can use something from here, but use the exact right one in here for what it does here. And then it'll show you on the screen what you get. And we can even take one of these, see how it comes out. Probably be terrible because it's using a bunch of things that aren't correct. Like, I don't know if that's the right way to do it. Percentage of equity, we can do that. So actually, stop percent from equity. That one's actually correct. Some of this might be correct. We'll just see how much of it comes out okay and how much doesn't. It'll be interesting. So let's go and put this in one of these. Let's just put it in. Well, this is short. So let's put it since the trade we have going as a short. Let's try it on short and see what comes out. So there you go. Market order, short. I'm going to actually, so I can put that back. I'm going to paste this in here, and then I'm going to put that in memory. And we'll see how much of this comes out. Now, this initial opening volley now should be different. This should actually be, well, whatever comes out from this. And there it is. That is exactly, except for the square brackets, of course, that is exactly what would be sent to you Trader's Post or whatever it was that you put it for. And if something didn't come out right, like a number, looks like all the numbers came out. Looks like I did a good job. Looks like everything is correct. So, but if something didn't come out right, then you just kind of change the substitutions in here until it is the way you want it to be. And that is pretty much how the auto trading is going to work. Now, if it doesn't work on the other end, you've got to look in that third-party system for return errors and start troubleshooting. It's probably not going to be in here because you can see whether it's right or not here. You can just look at it and go, that is correct or it's not correct. No, obviously comparing it to their documentation. So that shouldn't be an issue. But, there's other things can go, like your broker. You might have a stop too close for it to work for your broker or something. All that stuff's got to be figured out. And I think that's about all. I think I kind of went through it. What else have I got? Oh, one more thing. You can go up to trading and check a few things. Like, for example, you might want more information to see if things are working the way you expect them to work. Here under trade, which is kind of near the top, you can click on this show betting summary. Whoops, if I actually click it. And these two might give you information as well. You can always click on those, see what they come up with. This is the one I usually use, um, and give it a chance to come back. And you can actually see a lot of the details, like where the stop is, the stop distance. So you can actually look at this and then look at the numbers in here and see if everything's matching up the way you think it should match up, position sizing and everything. So this is one thing you can do. The other thing you can do is you can similarly go down to exit and click on details here, and you can click everything in there if you want. I don't think that's necessary, but I'll throw it in just for the hell of it. And then you're going to see something on the exit. So here we'll look at this one because that trade hasn't finished yet, so you can't see anything from exit. So you've got some exit details in there that you can look up and see if everything is the way you expect it to be. So there's basically ways of double checking all your data to kind of verify that what you're seeing is true and correct, for what you're trying to get. And, basically you've got ways of looking at stuff to make sure everything lines up is basically what I'm trying to say here. And are there any other things I'd like to show in here? I think that's probably everything. I think this stuff's too obvious for me to bother with. I'm not going to put that on. You can just play with these, the combinations of these things. You'll see how it all pans out.